Hello, all my little weirdos. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to Twisted Tales Tuesdays, where each episode I bring you along on a dark and twisted story. This week we are headed to a little piece of Connecticut, home of one of the most infamous lost towns in America. Acres and acres of land full of curses, unexplained mysteries, insanity, and even some ghost stories. Today we are talking about the curse of Dudleytown. Don't let the name fool you. This place was never actually a town. It was more of a farming settlement within the town of Cornwall, Connecticut. In fact, on a map from 1854, it shows the peak number of families living in Dudleytown, which was 26 families total. It got its name Dudleytown because, well, the Dudleys came and settled into the area, built their homestead there, and brought a curse along with them. The land's first owner actually wasn't a Dudley. His name was Thomas Griffiths, and he was one of the first to settle into the New World and bought this land in the 1740s. Not long after that, a fella named Gideon Dudley bought some land off of Thomas and brought his two brothers along to build near him. So technically, these guys started the little town. Where homes of a once thriving community are now gone and replaced by forests and rocks, the Dudley brothers were known as the men who brought the curse with them. Let me give you a little insight on what this curse actually is. It all started in England around the year 1510 with Edmund Dudley. Edmund was beheaded because he played a part in trying to overthrow King Henry VIII. And upon his beheading, a curse was placed on his whole family and all of the descendants until the end of time. The curse was to surround the Dudley family with horror and death, and that's when the bad luck began for the Duds. Another Dudley, John to be exact, also attempted to take over the British throne by marriage. He had his son marry Lady Jane Grey, who became queen after her father, King Henry VI, died. But the bad luck struck when Lady Jane, Daddy Dudley, and son Dudley were executed for treason. Another one of John Dudley's sons was a military officer, and because his last name starts with a D and ends with an Udley, the curse didn't discriminate against him. He returned back from France, unknowingly carrying a plague that killed a shit ton of his troops and spread throughout the country, killing thousands. So, this guy was responsible for a whole plague. With all of this terrible news that I'm about to bring you, I feel like I need to add in here a happy little note. It was reported that a total of three Dudleys moved out of the region and ended up living full and uneventful lives, dying of natural causes and not some weird shit that happened. So, naturally, that raises the question on if this curse is actually real. Somewhere says that the land was once Mohawk Indian tribal grounds before the New World came into play. A lot of researchers have come to light with their debunction theories, but one has to question if these phenomenons are connected to the past or if they're coincidence or just pure imagination. ABL Dudley was one of the brothers that became centerpieces for Dudleytown, and that curse did not dodge him. It just drug him along until he died in 1799 at the age of 90. He experienced setback after setback and eventually lost his entire fortune. He also, unfortunately, lost his mind in the process. When he couldn't pay his debts anymore, the town took his property and sold it and basically made him a ward of the town. He was unfortunately deemed senile and insane by the end of his life. What is also unfortunate is that Nathaniel Carter and his family moved to town and bought the curse infested home that ABL used to live in. Quickly after moving in, a plague swept through towns, neighboring towns, and Dudleytown, killing some relatives of Nathaniel that also lived in the area. Being grief stricken, he moved his family to New York in 1763. Later, moving to Delaware, they learned that you can take the family out of the cursed home, but you cannot take the cursed home out of the family. While in the Delaware wilderness, Nathaniel and his family were apparently attacked by Indians, resulting in the death of Nathaniel, his wife, and their infant. The three remaining children were abducted and taken to Canada, where the two girls were ransomed and the son remained with the captors. Another unfortunate event is one that people argue because technically it happened in the neighboring town. General Heman Swift lived in Cornwall with his wife, and while she was on the front porch, she was struck by lightning and died immediately. Stricken deeply with grief, the general lost his mind shortly and he died. Moving on to one of the last residents of Dudleytown, we have John Brophy. And I guess since he was one of the last ones, the curse basically had to put its spear down and do some real damage while it could. Poor John's wife battled for years with tuberculosis. She did eventually pass, which isn't that suspicious because tuberculosis was in the slushies at that point in time, but it gets worse. Shortly after putting his wife in the ground, his two kids just up and vanished. They went into the woods and vanished, and no one ever found them. And as if that wasn't bad enough on the old guy, his house burned to the ground in an unexplained fire. And after that, John said to hell with this and just went into the woods and vanished. No one has seen or heard from him since. This last event involves Dr. William Clark and his wife. The doc was traveling through one day and stumbled upon the little town of Dudley, which was practically abandoned at this point. But that didn't stop Dr. Clark because he was loving the forest and the isolation and decided to buy 1,000 acres of land and build a vacation home for his family. The doctor did just that, and on one summer day, he got called away for an emergency. While he fled to do his doctor stuff, his wife said that she would just stay at the vacation home and wait for him to return. He did return 36 hours later to an insane wife. She was apparently completely out of her mind, speaking of strange creatures that came out of the woods and attacked her. Unfortunately, she did not recover and she ended up taking her own life. Ghost tales started to surface around the 1940s. People would come out with paranormal photos they took, others felt an overwhelming sense of fear. Some saw mystery lights, weird sights and sounds, and some even claimed to have been touched, pushed, or scratched by hands that weren't physically there. Researchers have said that the area is like one of those hot spots for spirits where they can enter and exit from the other side, which could explain the claim of the creatures coming out of the woods and the outbreaks of insanity that ran rampant in the town. But nowadays, because there's always one person who ruins it for everyone, the land is private property and it's managed by a private land trust. You used to be able to visit and get your ghost hunt on, but now it is permanently closed to the public due to past vandalism, trespassing, and deconstruction of the natural environment. So that is the twisted tale of our cursed land of Dudleytown. If you have any other twisted tales you would like for me to do an episode on, drop a comment below. And until next time, bye.